This is the Rugby Ascendant Podcast with Envia Welman and Chris Wyatt.
Hello everyone, it's Make It a Sport, Rugby Ascendant Podcast. Chris Wyatt is here to have a chat to us. We're going to have a bit of a preview for the match coming up. So how's it, Chris? How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking. Hey, listen, this is our first live since appearing together at a bar outside Loftus.
Yeah. Several beers were consumed that night, I can promise you. Remember?
Oh, yeah, there were a lot of beers. That was actually the semifinal, wasn't it, when we enjoyed the beers? Yeah.
Yeah, that's when we still were able to beat an overseas team at Loftus, and that was Leinster of all teams. And I still think to this day that the Bulls played their final against Leinster. There was just not enough gas left in the tank, huh? What do you think?
No, I agree. It's just like 2019. The All Blacks played their final against England. They didn't put their best forward against the Springboks. Not taking anything away from Springboks, but they put all their energy into beating the All Blacks, and they did it. But they forgot they had another roadblock coming.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that roadblock was in the form of Franco Smith. And I've been harping on about Franco Smith this week, about his inside knowledge, knowing how to beat South African teams, being a South African himself, whispering in the ear of Greg on Townsend. So, of course, in an hour and a half time, it's a big one. South Africa versus Scotland. And you and I are going to have a bit of a chat about that a bit later on in this broadcast. But firstly, I wanted to talk to you about England versus Australia last night. Last night is the first time I streamed your comment on my channel. And I tell you what, I enjoyed myself. I loved your way of broadcasting, the little profanities, how excited you get. What a game that was.
Well, if you think that was exciting, tune into today's action, because I absolutely lose my mind with the Springboks. Listen, my style is different, and it's intentional. It's intended to stand out from other people. I mean, I watch some of the other channels that do that, and quite frankly, I don't get too excited by snazzy graphics and someone's going, yes, and Pollard kicks the ball to the corner.
Yeah, I
don't find that excited. I don't get too excited by that. But those channels get, 70, 80, 100,000 subscribers. Maybe one day my channel will get there. But I give it a different approach. I put my energy, my love, my lust for the game into it. And I try that all the time. Although sometimes it gets a bit challenging. I've done as many as 5 rugby games in one day. That's exhausting. I mean, no professional rugby color commentary. Because first off, the professional guys, there's a color commentary guy and there's a play-by-play guy. I do both, and I do it for 6 hours straight on multiple games. So, hey, some people like it, some people don't. That's fine. I'm glad that people enjoyed it. As you told me, you actually had pretty good numbers on that, even though you didn't announce it. If it starts to rival on mine, we'll have to shut it down. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
But, no, seriously, yesterday, and that wasn't even my best of my games. I wasn't on the top of my game. Not until the game got exciting late in the second half did I get into it seriously. But before that was kind of like, oh, man, this game is so weak. It's almost reminded me of the Ireland game the day before.
I wanted to just say that we normally stream the Radio Rugby Afrikaans commentary, which is audio only. And when they're not doing that commentary in Afrikaans, you and I I'm going to streaming your commentary, your color commentary, play by play. I saw what you meant by that last night. Lots of color in that broadcast, definitely.
Oh, there's definitely a lot of color. Leave the kids out of the room.
The funny thing was, I thought to myself, why would I be watching a guy broadcasting? And I actually enjoyed watching you. That was part of the fun. I watched the game, plus I listened to your commentary, and I just synchronized the feed so that I can watch.
In fact, that is a very common situation for South Africans. Those who can afford Super Sport, that's typically what they do. A lot of people watch and look, I'm not boasting. I mean, my last Springboks broadcast, I don't think I'll get that today. My last Springboks broadcast had 113,000 people who tuned in during the game. It might have been another 20,000 watched it after the fact, which is shocking. But a lot of people watch the game on television, put the TV on mute, and then they listen to me. I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, sorry for that. Just talk about that game quickly. England started off like a house on fire. I thought it was going to be a runaway victory. Some of the guys I follow on Twitter were all boasting about it's going to be a cricket score, it's going to be the Ashes all over again, and it turned around. I mean, what do you think made the difference in that last 20 minutes? To me, England looked like they were unfit.
I would agree. And I thought they were going to make a huge mistake like they made against the All Blacks in taking Marcus Smith out of the game. That was a huge mistake in that game. It cost them the game. Look, nothing against George Ford, but that was a huge mistake what they did there. But in the game against the All Blacks, but they didn't take him out. They brought Ford in. They put Ford at fullback, and they left Marcus Smith in there. Okay, that was a good move. But they just seemed to run out of gas, and they took things a little too much for granted. I mean, when they they got the ball back there. They thought they got the ball back there after the restart, and they didn't. They got all excited. They all jump up and down, and it's kind of like they wasted the last bit of energy doing that, and then there was nobody left to play defense. By the way, look, Marcus Smith had a brilliant game, but his attempt to tackle, he went for the ball, realizing, but I mean, I think he could have got it. It would have been worth getting a yellow card at that point. The game is over, so get the yellow card for knocking it down. I mean, look, I appreciate it. Anyway, you see it on the replay. In real time, you don't see it because the angle camera's a different way on television. But when you see the replay from the backside, you see him reaching up for the ball, and it looks like he get it, and then he pulls his hands back the last second. Either go for the tackle or go for the ball, because that's the last man, and there's nobody behind you. So anyway, look, England ran out of gas, and I'm with you. At 15-3, it looked like it was going to be a whitewash. It looked like this thing is over. It looks like Joe Schmidt's argument that the All Blacks are back, that they're improving, not the All Blacks, that the Wallabies are back, that they're improving, was just a bunch of smoke and mirrors and false propaganda. Now, I've been watching the Wallabies. Look, I'm not a fan of Australian rugby. I've never liked it. I don't like the All Blacks. My position is clear. I can't stand either of those countries when it comes to the sport. However, what has happened to Australian Rugby Union is heartbreaking. It is completely collapsed, and it has to be rebuilt from the inside out. And Joe Schmidt's trying to do that, but it takes time. So my argument was, if they could come into Twickenham and beat England, then they really are on the mend. They really are making progress. And there were some Wallabies players who are just absolutely outstanding in that game yesterday, and they really punished England. They really, really punished England. That guy, what's his name? Suali, so that guy, the rugby league guy who just came over back to rugby union. He was incredible. It's just a really good game. And I got to see some more performance out of Rob Valentini, who's been silent this season. He's one of my favorite players. If I have one there, he played really well. So, yeah, England just sort of ran out of gas. It was, game over.
That to me goes back to the coach. Remember, they had Wyatt who used to be the Springboks conditioning coach, and they had Felix Jones, Springbok defense coach, attack coach, who became their defense coach. And they both left, and I think Wyatt Walters going to Ireland. I suppose I've got a sneaking suspicion Felix Jones might end up as the Munster coach, just between you and me. But definitely the conditioning is, I think, as a result of this upheaval in that coaching arena. And I think Borthwick is under a serious amount of pressure here. Lost 5 of the past 6 games. Yes, he lost it in the last couple of minutes. But loss is a loss. Nobody's going to be happy with that. Losing at Twickenham or Allianz Stadium, whatever you want to call it today.
Yeah, back to back too, to Southern Hemisphere teams.
And now you have to face the Springboks next week.
It's going to be back to back. It's going to be crushing defeat. Listen, and the thing is that they shouldn't have lost either of these 2 games. They should lose the Springboks, but they shouldn't have lost the All Blacks. They had the game won. They removed Marcus Smith, who was hitting everything, from here to Tipperary. He was hitting everything, brilliant, and putting the ball where it needed to be. They took him out of the game just to take him out of the game. And George Ford, again, nothing against him, but he came on and missed everything. It was a terrible decision, and it hurt them. So they should have lost that game. This game, they collapsed. They had it, and they had it. It was over the hooter, and they lost the game. And they're going to lose against the Springboks. So that's just going to be crushing for England. That's going to break their hearts. And you're already going to hear, I'll tell you, there'll be memes after this about how the Germans have conquered England by destroying rugby, naming the stadium after a German insurance company, Allianz.
Okay. I see that. Listen, you talked about Suahili, which was brilliant. But for me, the Australian player of the match was Tom Wright, the fullback, and then the scrum off.
I was going to come back to that. Tom Wright in the first half was there. In the second half, he decided to take control of that game. You could see it. Instead of passing the ball for someone else to do a clearance kick or setting something up, he looked for gaps every time he got the ball. And if it was there, he exploited it. If it wasn't, he worked the ball. Tom Wright was absolutely brilliant. He was sublime in the second half. But the real change when this game changed is when Jake Gordon looked like he'd been in a UFC fight and blood pouring off his forehead. Oh my goodness, that was frightening. It was like Halloween. He came off the pitch, Jake Gordon, and then Tate McDermott came in, and the game changed completely, instantaneously. That moment, the game changed. And nothing against Jake Gordon. He was doing a good job at scrum half, but McDermott came in, and it just new energy, the right time, and the game turned on a dime. England was in trouble the moment that Tate McDermott came on. And when he went off, the Wallabies, they faded back until Tom Wright took control of the game.
What's his name? The scrum off, the injured one. He looked completely out of on his feet. He looked out of it. He looked like he was still concussed, even though he might have passed his HIA. And when he went off, I was relieved. Jake Gordon, there we go. I kept him on. I said Tom Jordan for some reason. Jake Gordon. To me, that was a talk about taking Marcus Smith off, taking McDermott off, and putting Gordon back on the field was a mistake. If they didn't do that, the Aussies would have won easier. I think would have won more comfortably.
100%, 100%. That gave England life because Jake came back in and he wasn't the same. He played, I mean, for an average team, he would have played well, but this is top level rugby union. You got to have your best out there. And at that moment, Tate McDermott was the right answer for the Wallabies, and he got him back into the contest. And then Tom Wright just took control late in that game. It was. Look, I mean, I'm not necessarily a big fan of Tom Wright. I never really was impressed with him, but I was impressed in the second half performance here. He won the game for the Wallabies.
One thing, did you see Len Ikital's now got a new name? It's now called Flickital because of that little flick pass he made back to Jorgensen to win that game.
That was brilliant. Look, I got a note here about Len Ikital. I mean, he's got one of the coolest names. I mean, Chaco Barras for Argentina has the best rugby name at Chaco Barras, but Len Ikital is one of those cool surnames, and I always like to see how he does. And I was really hoping that Len Ikital would have a good game because he's not been great lately. I think he had a good game, but that pass was incredible.
And just one thing about the Aussie back row, those Valentini, Wilson, and what's the other guy's name? I keep forgetting. Doesn't matter. They were exceptionally well. I saw that they were, but all three of them nominated for the Player of the Year in Australia. The John Eales medal.
Fraser McWright. Is that who talking?
That's it. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. No. Look, the Wallabies. This is an epic win for them. This is one they're going to remember for years, and they deserve it. They deserve it. But I'll tell you what, I mean, you saw it. I was the high moments, then the low moments. Can you believe it? Unbelievable. That's why I live for rugby, And look, to be fair, people are going to say, oh, you just like wide open rugby. Sure, I love it. But I also like contests where the game is, 12-9. I mean, if it's well played in a great defensive game, sure. Yeah. But if it's just, ping pong, that's not exactly rugby for me. It's like, I'm like Nas Bota. I'd rather watch badminton than watch this,
Talking about England for a bit, they've much vaunted defence. They leaked tries like anything yesterday. That especially in the midfield. When they swapped the centres around from last week, Slade and Ollie Lawrence. And I think that showed them up a bit. Their defence was really bad, and I don't think the Felix Jones now being out of it, and supposedly the remote defence coach now doing it by Zoom or Teams or whatever. That's not working for them, I don't think.
No, it's not. I'll tell you one thing. When the Bucks come to Twickenham next week, if we don't whitewash the score, I'm going to be screaming into the microphone.
And then one thing that I found so funny is I heard the English commentator say when they're commenting on Cunningham's strike, what beautiful hair he's got. I mean, what's that? It's like celebrating when they don't have a knock-on or they win a line-out, they're all celebrating. Remember, something not like in that England team, if you ask me.
Well, unfortunately for me, I don't get the English commentators because my source of rugby is varied. Depends on who's broadcasting. So a lot of what I watch is over Flow Rugby. So I get the feeds from whether it's South African, Kiwis, Irish, whoever it is. But with that game, that was on Peacock, which is NBC, because they have the contract for it. And I get the boring American color commentators and play-by-play guys. So I didn't get to hear what the English said talking about the hair. But, I got to say, let me give him his due. Chandler Cunningham South is coming on. He's going to be a great replacement for Courtney Laws. I mean, in that role, he's really good, not just because he had 2 tries in this game, but he played very well the rest of the game. It's unfortunate for England that lost because he was at the top of my list for man of the match on the England side.
If I was Baltic, I wouldn't be sleeping about his front row, though. Those props are either over the hill, recently retired, whatever they've got in the bank there is not going to stand up to the Springboks, I don't think.
No, I mean, I think we should just destroy them in the scrum. We should.
Right,
regardless of who starts.
Let's talk about Ireland versus the All Blacks quickly. I did not expect that. I predicted an Ireland win. I thought Ireland's got their tails in the air, the number 1 team in the world. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And the All Blacks are still finding their feet. Yeah, and they came and they conquered. They showed Ireland up at home nogal.
Yeah, my Super Brews all screwed up because I picked Ireland to win at home by 5. Look, I wasn't impressed with the All Blacks at Twickenham. They should have lost the game, and I didn't expect much more out of this game. This was less New Zealand looking strong and more Ireland looking pathetic. This was an embarrassment. I mean, honestly, they were atrocious. Only 2 players, well, maybe 3 players stood up, but 2 players stood up. Only 3 players, I think, had a decent game on Ireland's side. Gary Ringrose was brilliant. He had a great game, really good performance in my view. And Jamison Gibson-Park coming back from injury was fantastic at scrum half. He's the only reason they even had a chance in this game because his distribution of the ball. But I mean, Finley Bealham, I mean, they need to come up with another prop. This guy, Finley Bealham, I mean, yes, you have lovely tattoos all the way up and down your legs, and I love your feminine dreadlocks. But dude, you need to start performing on the pitch. Finley Bealham is, I mean, this was another poor performance. Andrew Porter did pretty well, but it's just, this was to me more Ireland not performing and the All Blacks performing. It's almost like Ireland, like, hey, it's at home. We're number one. This is ours. It's in the bag. No, this is the All Blacks. Until the whistle blows from the referee and your foot is on their throat, the game isn't over. That's how you approach New Zealand every time, regardless of who's playing for. Look, I mean, this is heartbreaking for me because at this point, New Zealand should have lost 5 games this test season. To Argentina, 2 to the Springboks, to England at Twickenham, and to Ireland, they should have lost here. They didn't lose.
No, well, that's a sign of a good team, a team that manages to win. That regardless of what like even against England, they were 2 scores behind, and they managed to overtake them. Again, I know England faded during the last 20 minutes. Looks, the conditioning might be a problem. The fact is that they fought back and they pulled it through. The All Blacks, I think, are starting to click. Things are starting to work now. Set pieces look good. Lineouts look good. Damien McKenzie's looking good. It's going to get dangerous next year.
That is my point. You don't give them oxygen.
Yeah. Sure.
They're like plant life. Once you produce enough oxygen on the planet, plants go crazy and grow everywhere. Once you give the All Blacks oxygen, they get confidence and they become world beaters. We do not need to see New Zealand as world beaters. That's our job as Springboks. Damn it.
And Damien McKenzie, I think he stepped up. I mean, he was a bit shaky in the beginning of the season until they gave Beauden Barrett a chance, but it looks like he studied Beauden Barrett to see what he should be doing and not be doing. He really played well. I mean, out of his skin, didn't miss a kick, or that I can remember. And then the one try from Will Jordan, that guy deserves, he needs to be watched like a hawk. He's so dangerous.
Will Jordan is one of those guys, kind of like James Lowe for Ireland, can just destroy your day in a heartbeat. You ignore him at your risk, at your own peril. In that game, I thought that Rico Ioane finally had some good play. It was nice to see him play well. Also, Wallace Atiti, that guy's a real deal. Wallace Atiti's a real deal. They've been talking about him. He is just all over the place, doing a great job. I was actually impressed at hooker by Amua. That guy is he's coming along. I thought he's a bit shaky early on. Artie Sevilla stepped up a bit. He's one of my favorite players, and he's been kind of slow and lame of late, but I thought he did well. But Jordy Barrett's yellow card was harsh, I thought.
Oh, that was harsh. I agree.
That was harsh. I mean, that's a rugby play. I mean, that shouldn't have been a yellow card. That's not fair. That needs to be downgraded. I mean, the rugby union really needs to take a look at the laws. I mean, and I know they take a look at the laws all the time, but they need to take a serious look at it. I need to get people that are actually maybe a few fans that know what they're talking about and a few players and put them in a room and let them discuss it, listen to what they've got to say, and then go back and look at the laws. Because, I mean, player safety is paramount. But we are giving yellow cards for play. I mean, look, Jordy had there's nothing to do in that. The guy came straight at him, heads up, right in front of him. What's he supposed to do? Just fall down the ground, let the guy run over top him? It was, look, I mean, it didn't change the game, but yeah, anyway. So I think that the All Blacks, unfortunately, are coming together. Mark Talia is playing well. Cortez Ratima, I was questioning his ability as a scrum half, but it's coming along. It'll get there. I don't think they have the best scrum halves, and that might be a weakness for the All Blacks right now.
I don't think it's Rotimo that's so bad. I think Ireland got away with murder. I mean, Harry said to me, it's like when he stuck his hands in that loser, it was like sticking your hand in a wood chipper. They were so bad. The Irish, so they were not blown up for that.
Oh, speaking of that, let me go back to the England game. Oh, England is back to their dirty tricks, man. They were in the ruck, hands in the ruck, people entering from side, and he never called anything. He never called any penalties against England. England committed so many offenses in that game against Australia yesterday at the breakdown. I mean, every time there was a breakdown, there should have been a call against it. They should have had like 30 penalties to kick at. I was really annoyed by that yesterday. You probably heard me say that during the game.
You know what I read on, I think, Planet Rugby today? They said about Ben O'Keefe's performance that Williams, the Australian lock that scored that try, was clearly on the line. And Ben O'Keefe was clearly blind for not calling that not calling that a try, because he said it was on-field try, so they had to get convincing evidence or compelling evidence that it wasn't a try. And they said he was clearly on the line. And you and I were both watching that game like a hawk. You were clear from the beginning that he didn't step on the line. And if he did, it was a millisecond later or maybe one later, whatever. The point is, it was never clearly on the line. That one-sidedness bugs me a little bit, don't you think?
So listen, I agree with you 100%. Let me just a little pimping from my own channel. Look, I am obviously biased. I'm a Springbok fan. I'm an Eagles fan, but I'm a rugby union fan. And 9 times or more out of 10, I'm honest about the call on the pitch. I get excited about it. But I mean, if our guy's getting away with something to break down, I'm like, whoa, look at that. And I'm always calling Villy out for forward passes because I'm the first to see it. But I mean, I like to think I'm objective, particularly when it comes to that, and I think that I've gotten most of those TMO calls correct, either in real time or if I'm wrong, because the angle I had, because you don't always get the right angle, then I'll admit it after the fact. But these television announcers are by and large incredibly biased, particularly the Northern Hemisphere guys. They're unbelievably biased. If it doesn't go their way, they'll sit there and try to convince the audience that they're right. That's not your job. That's not your job. Anyway, just saying.
All right, let's talk about the big one, the one that we're all here for. South Africa taking on Scotland. Now, Scotland sprung a few surprises. They've got Blake Kinghorn back, but they put him at wing, and they moved Tom Jordan to fullback. Tom Jordan is an exceptional flyer for Glasgow. And, of course, Finn Russell is back. Just on the strength of it, the looks of it on paper, what do you think of the Scotland side?
Well, I think it looks pretty good. But, I mean, you're headed into the wood chipper against the Springboks. But, again, what did I say when we talked a couple weeks ago? This is the what's the word for it? The phrase, I lost it now. This is the trap game. This is the trap game of the Northern Hemisphere tour. This is the one the Springboks cannot take lightly because this is the one team that can beat them. England has shown they can't beat the Springboks past couple weeks, and we know Wales. How do they do? They just play Fiji. They're playing right now. I haven't even checked the score. Anybody got scoring?
Someone said here that 3 cards in the first 20 minutes, and Fiji had a 20-minute red card. So typical free fall favors for flying.
Especially with Fiji. Oh, there it is. Yeah, but what's the score? Any score in that game?
No, they haven't said anything. Yeah,
well, I mean, look, this is a game in which Wales could have their scalp taken. Fiji, they can be fast when they want to be, and they could take Wales down. But yeah, so of the 3 games in the Northern Hemisphere tour, this is the trap game. Scotland at Edinburgh. If this game were in South Africa, I wouldn't have any fears, and I'm not fearing, but this is the one to watch out for. But I think this is a good Scotland lineup. I mean, they've got the one thing, Blair Kinghorn is back. That's good to see. I mean, that's he was out with injury
on the wing.
Yeah, I see that. He's probably better at fullback than he is at wing, but we'll see how it goes. Finn Russell's return is really good news for Scotland, and that should make the game much more interesting. Yeah, I think it's a good lineup. It's the best Scotland can do. It's a country of just a couple million people. What do you expect?
Yeah, but the interesting thing about this game, you talked about we should be careful, we shouldn't step into the trap, and we go and select a team that's sort of left field, don't you think? Kwagga Smith did not convince me or anybody for that matter at 8 against Ireland, both games, Loftus and Durban. He's too small. He doesn't really fit into the new Tony ball pattern where Sia and Peter Steph Toy is running on the tram. So poor Kwagga's left to do all the work here. We know he dropped a couple of kickoffs. He wasn't very good at that. He's too small when he's alone in the Ruxham malls. He gets driven off the ball quite quickly or easily. I don't know how they're going to counter that. I don't know what they're thinking. I know it's his 50th game and you want to give him a start, but then start him on the side of, as a fetcher or something, and put Jasper Wiese in the beginning. I know they have to save their heavy artillery for next weekend's game, but still, I mean, I think I'm worried a little bit, to be honest, like you just said, that we're going to walk into a trap here by underestimating. I know it's a clever one that we've got a nuclear squad coming on at the end, and Scotland doesn't have a strong bench. The point is that for the 60 minutes, we can be in for a surprise there.
Well, let me just start off by saying that the Springboks have a world-class bench. They have an amazing, let me read the bench here. Malcolm Marx, Gerhard Steenkamp, Vincent Koch, R.G. Snyman, Sia Khaleesi, Peter Steph du Toit, Jasper Wiese, and Grant Williams. I mean, that is a starting 8, half a team for any team in the planet would kill to have any one of those players starting at the position for them. So let me start with that. Okay, then let me go back to the somewhat puzzling, confusing Springboks lineup here. I've learned not to question Rossi very often, but I am scratching my head today. I agree with you. Kwagga Smith at 8. I love Kwagga. I mean, he's a fantastic player. I mean, anybody can play with a broken nose like that. Just
permanently broken.
Yeah, permanently broken. Look, I loved him as a Blitzbach, and I love him as a number 6 when he plays for the Springboks. Even on the wing, I don't mind seeing him on the wing. But he struggled with that number 8 position a couple times, and it seems puzzling that he starts there. And also, I'm high on this guy, but Eskom has not been up to scratch this season. Marco van Staden is not, and you're a Bulls fan, so that's tough for you to admit. I mean, Marco has not been the player that we've seen in the past. I don't know what's going on. Maybe this is an effort.
He came back from a very severe injury, knee injury, remember?
Yes, that's true. But I mean, at this stage, he ought to be showing something. Maybe that's what this game is about. But I'm thrilled with the locks. I mean, we lost another lock, didn't we? So Franco Mostard is stepping up. He's back. Eben is the captain. I mean, this lineup is pretty good. I'm looking for big things today from a few players. Villy is about to hit the wall where they're going to take him out of the lineup after he gets to 100 test matches, which I think is unfortunate. He's still got a couple more years in the tank. But Villy, I want to see a big game out of him. Andre Esterhuizen, I'm expecting big things out of him against Scotland today. And Andre Pollard, I'm curious to see how he does. And then I'm going to be keeping a close eye on Quagga Smith and also on Marco Funstad. The one guy I expect to run riot today, Elric Lowe. I expect him to be a Tasmanian devil. I expect to see big things out of him. And I'd like to see us perform very well in the scrum with that front row. That's a good front row. Thomas the Tank, Thomas Dutoy, Bonga Manabe, and Oxenche is a good choice. And then your bomb squad is Malcolm Marks, Hans Tiedekop, and Vincent Kalk. Well, there's no drop off. That might be an improvement. That should come off the bench.
Yeah, the worst thing is that Wilkelo is not even in the squad, and he's another freaking world-class tight end. Can you imagine? I'm just thinking about Villy now. I don't think Villy's going to get to his 100 overseas. They're going to give him a home game to make his 100th.
Oh no, absolutely. It'll be at home. I agree. But what I'm saying is that they're going to, we've talked about this. It's clear they've already kind of made it stated they're going to push him out of active playing for the Springboks after this. He's going to go into a coaching role. I think that's short sight. I think you need to keep him all the way up until the year before the World Cup, playing Springbok test matches. And if he's still got it in the tank, then you take him to the World Cup. If not, we've got the people to replace him.
Yeah, he's going to be too old by then. I mean, that's another 4 years added onto it. I mean, you've got a fussy, but we don't have that kind of a rugby brain that Villy has, that, putting it on a tee, the kicks and stuff, the interchangeability with Andre, for example, where he goes to 10. Right. That we're going to miss. I agree with you. Fussy is a missile, but a missile is only as good as where it's aimed at, and he's not really the one doing the aiming. He's one that's being aimed, if you get my drift.
Well, and let's be honest. Come on, you have to be honest. Nobody is as good at throwing forward passes as Villy Leroux. I mean,
or straight passes. Very, very, very straight passes.
Okay, look, this is coming from a place of love. When he played for the Cheetahs, I was a huge Villy Leroux fan. And when he went to the Bulls, screw him.
Exactly. Your blue spectacles need to be taken off there, bro. Your blue and white structure spectacles, definitely.
Listen, hey, look, they let me in the Loftus still. I suppose I ought to be careful what I say.
Yeah, we welcomed you at the Loftus, man. Come on, yes.
Oh, you are absolutely true. Yeah, not only look, folks. For those listening, not only is the media crew very welcoming to me. They were very wonderful and friendly. People whose bylines I know, who I'd never seen in person and met, coming up, pat me on the shoulder, greet me, shake my hand. It was really, really heartwarming when I came back to Loftus this past season. But it's not just that; it's the front office, it's the media folks. They're just a great bunch of people there. And they I think they appreciate that this is an American perspective, and I'm honest. I'm not just I don't beat up on the Bulls. I joke about it, but I treat them fairly and I give objective analysis. So great bunch of people up there in Pretoria in the Highveld. I love it.
Yeah, of course. I live in Pretoria as well. I live close to Loftus, as you probably know by now. Let's just talk about the match quickly. I think Elrich was brought in here because he's taller and he's going to be sort of a backup for Quagga. And there seems to be a bit of a feeling that when it comes to scrum time, Elrich might pack down at 8 and Quagga will move to the sides. So what do you think of that?
I'm sorry, who did you say was brought in? I couldn't hear the first part.
No, Elrich was brought into the team to compensate for Quagga's lack of height and weight and everything else.
I agree 100%. What'll happen is that Sia will come in the game, and when Sia comes in, we're going to see Quagga go out, and then Elric will shift to number 8. I think that's what's going to happen.
And Peter Steph, all right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Peter. Yeah. Well, yeah, there's that too. Look, Peter Steph Dutoy. I mean, the best prop, wing, fullback, scrum half, number 6, number 8 on the planet.
Well, now you mentioned it's a 7-1 bench, and they've got Grant Williams on the bench, the only back. But when you think about it, the number of players in that side that are so versatile that they can play anywhere. The only player who's not versatile is Mapimpi. He's a wing, a dedicated wing, either left or right, doesn't matter. But I mean, everybody else. Moody is a centre, a wing, and a fullback. Villy can play fullback and fly half. If you go down the list, Andre can play fly half if he wants to. Elm can play number 12 if he wants to. Quagga can go play in the back line if they need it. So it's actually a calculated risk. It's still a risk, but I mean, it's there. And Jaden can take over from Andre if he wants to, because he played fly off at school, and he can kick to the post as well, like we saw against the Pumas in Elspeth.
No, absolutely. There's a lot of flexibility here. We've talked about flexibility a lot this past few months with the Springboks, and there's a lot here. Look, again, it's if I was Rasa Erasmus, I would just be content. I'd be like a pig in slop. I mean, you're always spoiled for choice. You can take these risks, you can experiment, you can try around, you can look at talent coming up. I mean, we haven't even talked about these younger guys that are coming up, like Yuri Matia for Western Province and the Stormers, a fantastic fly half, and that's just one of many players that are just coming up behind the scenes here that are in Curry Cup and then making their way into URC, and we'll see them going forward. The only bad thing about South African rugby right now is my Stormers. I mean,
Your brother in
only,
jail. You love him, but you don't talk about him.
that's right. It's the only thing going wrong in South African rugby right now. Hey, listen, let me shift for a second before we run out of time, because I know you've got some other things to take care of before we move on. I want to cover very quickly a couple things. Yesterday, Canadian rugby is truly in trouble, and I've been saying that since the build up to the 2023 World Cup. Their performances were atrocious. They won a game against the Eagles, but that's a game in which we discovered the new laws. But anyway, I'm talking about the 50-22 and such, the Canadians looked terrible, and they played against Chile, who got to the World Cup this past year by beating the Eagles in the aggregate points. Chile earned their spot, and they showed it in the World Cup. They performed admirably at that World Cup, their first time, but they just trashed Canada yesterday, 44-14. They absolutely trashed them. It was the thumping. And on top of that, Portugal, which is a team that performed very well in the World Cup, earned their spot once again. They went on aggregate points in the Repash tournament. They scored more points against their opponents than the Eagles did, so the USA stayed out of it. But Portugal earned a spot. They were the most exciting team that everyone was interested in watching there. I have a Portuguese jersey. It's an awesome one. A lot of those players on that team, this was their final hurrah, and they've moved on. They're no longer playing for the national team. So it's not quite the same team, but the USA beat them 23-17 yesterday in Portugal. That's huge. The Eagles have struggled this season. This is the first time they've actually played as a team and performed well. So that's we got Canada falling off the radar. We got America steadying the ship, and we've got Chile performing very well abroad. This is some good stuff. And then the Pumas, they slaughtered Italy. I expected that, but that was much worse than I thought.
That was going to be my next question. Next weekend, Ireland takes on Argentina, who thumped Italy, like you mentioned. I think it was 50-18. So for Ireland, that's taken a bit of a beating. That is going to be probably one of the highlights. But never mind that. Let's not forget, next weekend France plays New Zealand, and if you don't want to watch that, then watch the Springboks take on England. Next weekend is going to be absolutely
the weekend. If I don't gain a bunch of subscribers next week on my program, I'm going to quit doing this. This is going to be the biggest weekend of the autumn test series. I mean, this is going to be amazing. So think about this for the Pumas. Okay, ready? They beat the All Blacks in New Zealand. They beat the Springboks in Argentina. They beat Italy in Italy. If they beat Ireland in the same season, what a season! They beat
Australia as well. Don't forget, twice. No.
They beat Australia. Sorry, they beat Australia. Yeah. So if they beat Ireland, what an incredible season! This would be like a golden age for them. Yes, I know they've been to quarterfinals and been to a semifinal World Cup before, but they've never had seasons like this. I mean, they're beating teams all over the world. What other team has gone abroad and done so well? This is awesome. I'm really impressed by the Pumas. And again, Chaco Barras, one of the best names in rugby union.
Contemponi is also a nice name, and also a good coach.
That's a nice name. Yeah. And look, I'm kind of a guy that liked him, but I mean, pushing Augustin Crevy aside was probably the right move. Yeah, they're looking better without him.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
all bit of sentiment that needed to be taken care of, and it's done. Argentina's playing Ireland next week, but then the week after that they're playing France. So tough, but couple of Simons left for them still.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction that Argentina will win one of those two games, and I think the odds-on favorite is they win the Ireland game.
Oh, that's a big call.
Hey, I'm laying it out right now. They're looking that good, and this isn't the euphoria of them beating Italy, because Italy's not that impressive. This is just looking at them all season, what they've done. They never give up. I mean, the game that we lost 29-28 in Argentina. My goodness, they just did not give up in that game. Anyway.
That's what I like it. Listen, Chris, just one last thing. We're going to be doing your streams for some of those games next week. We'll put out the details during the course of the week so people can watch it. But people, you have to make a point of watching Chris do a broadcast. It's something to behold. I loved it, I must be honest.
Well, one of our viewers here, Rizla, just said, guess Robbie next week. It's not cheap. He's going to be where I was expecting to be. I was doing a tour following the Springboks in November in Wales, Scotland, and Twickenham, but I couldn't get a ticket to Scotland. So Getting tickets to Murray Field are almost impossible unless they're playing, I don't know, like USA or Romania. But getting a ticket for a Springboks match, they were sold out before they even opened the darn thing up. So that put the kibosh plus the cost. But I was going to be there. It sounds like he's going to be at Twickenham. So have fun and enjoy the walk to and from that stadium, since the public transport sucks on game day.
So thanks for everybody that's been watching and commentating. It's a bit difficult for me. I'm still new to this. Chris is an old hand. It's difficult for me to watch and listen and concentrate what I'm going to say next and type away. And so yeah, I have to still learn to be a bit of a multitasker. But thanks, Chris. I really enjoyed this. We should do this more often.
My pleasure. In fact, I think we should do it. We'll look at next week, but it'll hinge on the games, because if there's a game right before the Springboks, I'll be calling that game. So, but if we can do it, we'll do another live. Maybe if not, maybe we just do a live, during the week, and see how it goes as you're coming at your own. But thanks to everybody for tuning in. I really appreciate it. By the way, we're trying something new here, because MV, this is something new for him. You should be redirected when this stream ends automatically to my Rugby Ascendant channel for the Springboks, and I will be going live there in about 25 minutes. So that way you got time to go to the loo, grab a sandwich. Don't do that in the loo, by the way, but go to the loo, grab a sandwich, and then get ready for the game. We'll have pregame for the Springboks, and then a Springboks in Edinburgh at Murray Stadium. I'm sorry, Scottish Gas, Murray Field.
You know what? I forgot to ask you. What's your prediction for the game?
South Africa 38, Scotland 23.
As close as that. I think South Africa is going to beat them by at least 20 points, at least, and they're going to get less than 10. So South Africa somewhere in the 30s and Scotland less than 10. Jeez.
Well, let me see. Let me add up. We got 1, 2. Hang on here. 3, 4, 5, 6 blue Bulls in this lineup. So I'm expecting a leaky defense at some point with 6 Bulls in the start. Oh, shots fired! Shots fired!
Yes. Yeah. No, the Bulls defense stepped up this season. I mean, John Teat made a huge difference taking over from Gary Gold. I'm going to be honest about that.
Listen, Gary Gold's my guy. I like Gary Gold. Let's not beat up on him.
Look at the Eagles are doing better since he left. Now, I don't want to be a prophet of doom, but I mean, let's be honest.
Eagles were undefeated when he started. They had 9 straight.
How did it end?
Well, at the end, he can't help it if the players can't perform. I mean, it's not Gary Gold who ran into a ruck where the whistle had already been blown after the play was over and got a penalty, costing us a penalty shot to go to the World Cup. That's on the players.
No, I'm kidding about that. But what I was saying about Gary Gold, he's not a defense coach. He just helped Jake out, I suppose. And I think you could see it last year in the Bulls, last season, the Bulls' performance. The defense wasn't that good. This season's definitely taking a step up.
Yeah. Hey, Ian Adrian says, sorry, Chris, I love Afrikaans. No, I get it. Ek praat nie Afrikaans nie, maar ek verstaan, but I can't speak the game. I wish I could, because I think I'd have a cool Afrikaans accent if I could do the game. But I mean, it wouldn't be quite as colorful because I'd be struggling to fill my sentences out as I went.
You know what I noticed about your accent is you don't have that. You're struggling with that one.
Yeah, no, it's some of that's intentional because of Ronaldo.
Yeah.
I like to mess around. Yeah, so he started giving me grief on that a long time ago, and I said, listen, listen there, Ronaldo goes. Why don't you just be quiet?
Okay, so good night to everybody in Afrikaans, Chris. Let's give the Boks a bit of a boost there.
Well, goeienacht. I think is that how he said? It's not none, because that's good evening. Goeienacht, yeah, sir. All right, good night, everybody. Thanks a lot for being here. We'll see you on the Springboks and in Scotland, whether it's in Afrikaans or English. We look forward to you joining us. Cheers.
Thanks, Chris. We'll do it again next week. Appreciate your time, man. Enjoy the game.